Okay, my name is Jim Wallace, and I'm making a practice video for John Metzler at the Craft Center at North Carolina State University. When I teach the spindle turning portion of the basic wood turning class, the first project that I give people is turning a mallet. And this project is designed to introduce people to the idea of spindle turning, how to stick a piece on the lathe, how to secure it, and should help them get comfortable with the first tool of spindle turning, and probably the most important tool of spindle turning, which is the roughing out gouge. And this project can be done almost entirely with the roughing out gouge. We may use another tool or two to finish it, but the roughing out gouge is the first tool that you use on almost any spindle turning, because it's the tool we use to take the corners away. So what I have here is a piece of red oak. It's green red oak that I have riven out of a red oak log. The tree was blown down in a hurricane on my farm, and riving is just splitting, but it's splitting with a purpose. When you are breaking up a log to make firewood, we call it splitting. But when you are breaking up a log to make pieces for spindle turning, to make chair parts or mallets or anything like that, why, we call it riving. And this is a piece of riven white oak. And for this class, I normally take these rough pieces of oak that I split out of a log, and I square them up using the jointer. I joint two sides to get flat squares, two sides that are flat and square to each other, and then I rip them on the table saw just to make them regular. And the reason I do this is that since I'm teaching beginners, I want them to have something that's not too irregular to start with, so that it's just not too challenging. We don't want those very unusual corners coming around. We don't want those small lathes at the craft center shaking too badly. But if you were making this at home, if you were riving this out of a piece of a log, why, there's no particular reason to need to make it too regular. You can just split it and get it as close as you can. So the first thing to do is to put the piece on the lathe, and so we need to be able to find the center. If the piece is square, as this piece is more or less square, it's sitting around a little bit, so it's changed shape a little bit as it's begun to dry. You can find the center of it by drawing the diagonals. And so even though this piece isn't perfectly square, drawing the diagonals will get us pretty darn close. If you're dealing with a piece that's even more irregular, a very quick way to find the center is to take your finger and a pencil to make a rough marking gauge, and you want to make a mark from all four sides. You're not really trying to reach the center. You're just trying to draw a figure that is congruent to the shape of the piece that you're working with, but smaller. And that little figure is very easy to see the center of. Whereas when you're trying to look at this thing, you're trying to judge what's halfway between each side and so forth, trying to find the center. It's much harder to do with a piece that's 2.5 or 3 inches square than it is with a little tiny square in the middle. So it's just a quick way of finding your center. The idea here is to try to spend your time turning, not measuring. It's not that there's anything wrong with measuring, it's just that there's no need to do unnecessary measurement. When you put this on the lathe, I put the center tip on the mark that I've made at each end, and then I tighten up the tailstock here to get the spurs to register in the headstock end of the piece. Now, occasionally this piece may need to be secured more than just with this method. You may have to either knock the center out and drive it in with a mallet, or if it's a very large piece, you can actually take it to the bandsaw and cut your diagonals, and it will make a place for your spurs to register. But it's important to realize that having these spurs very registered in the end is a bit of a safety feature. If you happen to stick a tool or make some other mistake, why normally the spur center will just drill the same way as a spade bit would drill, and it's then just a very easy thing to tighten up the tailstock again a little bit and get it adjusted back where it'll spin again. So it's important to think that safety is important, and so having the thing lightly held is an advantage many times. When you're dealing with a large piece of hard wood like this, though, if it spins too much, you may have to stop and drive the spur center in to get good registration. Okay, the second safety feature that's very important is to keep your speed moderate. This speed is somewhere around 600 to 800 RPMs, and it's a moderate speed. There's no need to turn terribly fast. I see people that turn at a very high rate of speed, and I'm not really sure that there's any advantage to that. So this is our roughing out gouge. This is a gouge that's a British design tool, and it's got a deep, wide flute and a fairly large included angle, so that it's not terribly sharp. We want to sharpen it and get a nice edge on it, but we're not making it have a very long bevel that would make it hard to control. This tool we're going to apply with the handle held down low, and we're going to allow the bevel, the bottom of the bevel. If you look at the bevel here, the bevel is the part that you grind to sharpen the tool. This cutting edge is where the top face meets the bevel. We're going to put it on and let the heel of this bevel back here rub against the tool, or against the corners as they come around. And we're going to raise our handle until we just barely get a shaving coming over the top. And at that point, we're at our ideal cutting spot. And when you bring the tool away from the work, it's always important to drop your handle just slightly and bring it back and find that cutting spot. If you just stick it in where it's cutting, very likely you'll end up here in a scraping position, which will not give you as clean a cut, and it will also not give you the control that you get when the bevel's rubbing. Okay, so we're going to apply it down low. You can hear our bevel rubbing, but you can see that it's not cutting. And we bring it up until we get a shaving just coming over the top, and then we begin to move from side to side. Now, the roughing out gouge the way you do with a chisel or something like that. You can see that I have sharpened the entire edge, so you can roll it from side to side so that you use the entire sharp edge, but you do not lead it one way or the other with the tool. You keep it perpendicular. Okay, you can see the piece slow down. That meant that my driving center was drilling just a little bit. I got a little aggressive, so I just have to tighten up the tailstock to get it to register again. Okay, and here's our approach. We always put the bevel, heel of the bevel on the work and bring it up so it just begins to cut. There's our cutting spot, our ideal cutting spot. Okay, now I'm intentionally going slow so that everyone can see what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and finish making it round now. Okay, and you could just hear the flats go away. Yep, hadn't quite got all the flats, so, but it's starting to feel very smooth. And you could see it bouncing a little bit up at this end. There's some kind of a knot up here. I actually don't see it. Here it is. So, and this knot is causing us a little extra hardness in this end of the piece. So, I'm going to just finish this off.